When this movie was announced and after a look at the trailer, it was clear that it wouldn't serve highbrow food for thought. Instead, there seemed to be the promise of a fast-paced, self-aware and highly entertaining piece of werewolf action. Now, did the movie deliver on that unspoken promise? It is worth your time? Hi there, it's Micha. Join me for this review if you like to find out.
Supermoon events occur when the full moon is at its closest orbit to the Earth. This can happen multiple times a year, but last year was different.
Over 1 billion people worldwide were violently transformed into werewolves that night, and that way claimed countless victims. It is still unclear why it started, if it is genetic, and why not everyone was affected.
Let's focus on what we do know.
You will only transform if you are exposed to moonlight. So locking yourself in will protect you and others, depending on if you would be a potential victim or someone to transform into a werewolf. Now, 1 year has passed and the next supermoon is at hand, so...
Have a plan, stick to it, and stay safe.
This is exactly what the lead character, Wesley Marshall, does for his sister-in-law Lucy and his niece. After his brother, a first responder, died last year by the hands, or better claws, of those monsters. He fortifies their home and gives them clear instructions.
Let's go over the rules.
Don't open the door for anyone. Yeah. Don't make any noise. Don't draw attention.
That is because Wesley has to leave them to do his job. Because he's not just a decorated army vet, but also
Global Rapid Response Team Leader and Lead Molecular Biologist.
Together with his colleague Amy Chan, he is spearheading the research team, trying to determine the root cause of the transformation and, maybe even more importantly, testing a possible protection against the effects of a moonlight, the so-called moon screen, which, similar to sunscreen, is sprayed on, here on some volunteers. Of course, things quickly go awry and soon the research facility is overrun by werewolves, forcing Wes and Amy to leave the place only equipped with the moon screen that will give them 1 hour of moonlight protection. Together they head to Lucy and her daughter, which is just as well, as there things also didn't exactly go according to plan. How will the night end and who will survive? Like I said in the intro, I wasn't expecting much of a plot in this one, but was looking forward to a nice evening of popcorn cinema with a lot of action and suspense. Unfortunately, the movie didn't deliver on all of my expectations. There were some solid thrills, but also a lot of distractors. Most of those are due to a really laughable script. And I know I just said I didn't expect much plot, and that would have been fine, but the plot they put in was riddled with holes, and many storylines that didn't lead anywhere. Let me do a quick roundup here to give you an idea. The wolves in the lab got out due to the roof malfunctioning. Not original, but I could live with that. But why, if they were handling these creatures, would they not have werewolf-proofed this place? Have at least some rooms where they could lock themselves in? Why were they not prepared for that very probable scenario? Okay, it was a government project, so that might actually be the most realistic part of the movie. But I digress.
Attention, all staff, please move to emergency exit.
Everyone was asked to leave the place as it was unsafe to stay. But why would it be safer outside? Inside they had a handful of these creatures, but out there in the city, who knows? Then, while on the run, Wes and Amy got help from a group hunkered down in a mall, who then turned out to be not that friendly, for no reason.
We're scientists. There was an accident at the lab. We're working on a cure.
But then helped them again, by basically just letting them pass through. That added nothing to the story and made not much sense. It felt as if there was a larger story that they decided to cut from the movie, though not completely. Which is weird, because you could have removed that group completely with anyone being the wiser, while it now just feels a bit off.
You kind of belong here.
A similar feeling is presented in other scenes too. Maybe they thought that the movie was too long and wanted to concentrate more on the action, and maybe they were right, but could have done a better job in removing those scenes. The editing in general was a little bit odd, as they sometimes cut away in the middle of the action without later showing the aftermath. No explanation as to what happened to that wolf. They both were then shown alive and kicking in the next scene. Then we have a neighbor being introduced at the start with clearly just the purpose to later return and create a problem for Lucy, as the trope goes. Which of course turned out to be true, making her violate the rules she was given to keep safe.
There's someone at the gate.
Don't answer it, okay?
Mrs. Marshall, it's me!
On top of that, this also led nowhere, as it was meant to inform the wolves in the vicinity about Lucy being home. But as the monsters are also clearly sentient, as is showcased over and over again, they would have found out anyways. There are further issues that contain spoilers, so I will not share them now, but at the end of the video in the spoiler zone. Anyway, that all would still have been tolerable if the movie would deliver on the action and fun level. And I don't mean fun as in a comedy, which this movie is not, and doesn't have to. What I mean is that while the action is solid enough, the movie somehow doesn't really try hard enough to have fun with its own premise, and takes itself more seriously than I expected. And it doesn't help that the movie serves up almost every other horror movie cliché there is. We have the hero having to leave his loved ones, a creature lowering itself from the ceiling behind the leads.
Hold your ears.
Not sticking to the safety rules even though it will endanger your own daughter.
Hey, Reagan, hold on.
Lucy!
I'm gonna come get you, alright?
Shooting into the walls, wasting your ammo even though you are almost out, and even running out of bullets. I mean, not only is this the US of A, but also a vet was prepping her and they only had one box of shells?
Door left.
I don't buy that. Regarding the effects, there were some solid transformations, though created with CGI, but fortunately the bulk of the effects were done practically, ranging from decent over passable to a bit cheesy. Overall they were quite charming, but didn't really scream big budget, which I expected the movie to be due to it being quite prominently promoted. But since I couldn't find a number for it, they probably had to manage with less money than I thought. That might also explain why they opted not to digitally remove what looks to be a cable to lower down the wolf in this scene. But maybe that is just in my head. Two last callouts. First off, it was funny to see Frank Grillo, who is generally way too underappreciated, in a movie with a premise so similar to his most famous role in the two Purge sequels. In both, society shut down for a night, emergency systems were suspended, and he had to fight through the dangers of that night. I was hoping that this one would be as entertaining and give him the overdue career push, but as this one didn't earn that much at the box office, it likely means back to smaller parts or streaming content. The other thing is this movie's title. It is mind-blowing that apparently no other movie, except for a short feature and a documentary, has ever used the title Werewolves. It's always something like the Werewolves of XYZ, but never just plain and simple Werewolves. Fascinating. And with that being said, let's get to the rating. Well, in a nutshell, the movie was not what I was hoping for. It shot itself in the foot by not leaning enough into the simplicity of its own premise, just having fun with it. Instead, it took itself too seriously, ending up fighting more with plot holes and apparently removed storylines than with actual werewolves. It's not a dud, but wasted a lot of its potential. It also relies too much on the usual tropes its target audience has seen too many times. That way, it only manages to barely make it to mediocrity, so with a lot of goodwill, I'm going with 5 out of 10 points, though I almost went a step lower. With some friends and a beer in hand, if you like such scenarios, it might score a little bit higher with you. Now, if you don't want to get spoiled, feel free to leave and return at a later point. If you don't mind spoilers or have already watched this movie, please follow me into the spoiler zone. I will mainly be addressing two major issues here. The first one is the complete storyline around Wes's colleague Amy, as there also seems to have been much more plot that was removed. First we see her husband being introduced as one of the experiment's volunteers.
Whatever happens tonight, remember it is my choice.
I know.
Then they encounter him on their way out of the facility, where she prevents him from being killed. Followed by the weirdest edit of the movie, where you expect to see them fight their way to the car, potentially one of the most exciting moments of the movie, but instead, all of a sudden, they are already in the car.
It's Myles.
Go!
There obviously was something missing. Also, that whole scene would make you expect that her husband later has another function or would pop up again, to be important for Amy's character, but as they unceremoniously killed her off close to the end, it is just another plot point leading nowhere, and screams re-edit. And her death is dipping into one of the most overused tropes ever.
Come on, come on, come on!
Not getting to safety, hesitating for no reason other than to die. I mean, you also wonder why she didn't get to a safe place alone, but tags along on Wes's way home. But that likely was also lost in the editing room. And most of the issues I highlighted today were totally avoidable, which makes it almost worse.
Good luck tonight, Cody.
I don't need luck.
The last thing is about his neighbor who becomes the main wolf threatening his sister-in-law, and the totally stupid and forced finale of the movie. With a few minutes till sunup, the house was pretty much open for the creature to enter and all ammunition was gone. Instead of staying inside with his family, using other utensils as weapons, Wes decides to step out into the moonlight, changes into a wolf and fights the enemy, which is dumb in many regards. First off, it was implied over and over again that not everyone would transform, that some are not impacted, yet in some scenes it appears to be considered a sure thing.
Protected!
We're protected!
It blocks the light! It works!
Bullshit, man!
This was never properly addressed, because if everyone changes, there should have been little to no casualties last year, as the wolves don't attack each other. Yet here in the final showdown they do, because apparently Wes is the only one to not lose his identity, fighting the other wolf to protect his loved ones. Until he doesn't, and after killing the bad wolf, attacks his own family, as was expected. He should either have been able to control himself in both scenarios, or not at all, joining forces with the other creatures. This made no sense on so many levels. There is still a happy end though, due to the sun coming up and a last bullet becoming available after previously running out, which is also a classic movie trope. But they at least didn't kill off our hero. Though even a lot of the visuals around these hero moments looked way too cheesy. But well, there we are. That's basically it. I had high hopes for this one. Sad to see it struggled so much to even become an average genre entry. What about you? Have you seen this one and also expected more? Do you agree with my assessment, or do you think I was too critical of this film? Whatever you like to share, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, share or subscribe. So much for now, see you next time, and thanks for watching. Were violently transformed. You will only transform if you are exposed to moonlight. Here on some volunteers. Because he is not just a decorated army vet. Because he is not just a decorated army vet.